Welcome to Designed for the Creative Mind, a podcast for interior designers and creative entrepreneurs to run their business with purpose, efficiency, and passion. Because while every design is different, the process should remain the same. Prepare yourself for some good conversations with amazing guests, a dash of Jesus, and a touch of the woo-woo, and probably a swear word or two. If you're ready to stop trading your time for money and enjoy your interior design business, you are in the right place. I'm your host, Michelle Lynn. Hey, welcome back to Design for the Creative Mind podcast. Today, we are talking about saying no before you're ready and how turning down the wrong work actually accelerates your growth. So if you are waiting until you feel ready to say no to the wrong projects, babe, you will be waiting forever and you're going to be paying for it the whole time. So I get it. I totally get it. Saying no feels risky. You start wondering, what if the right project doesn't come along? Or what if this client tells their friends that I turned them down, especially if they're kind of in the same neighborhood as you? Or what if I never get asked again? I've had some other designers saying, what if I get a bad reputation in town because I'm turning people down? But here's the thing. Every time you say yes to a bad fit, you're blocking space for a great fit. And I'm going to show you why saying no, even before you feel ready, can actually be the fastest way to grow your business, to protect your profit, and protect your sanity. And girl, I've been there. I get it. I used to take on almost anything that came my way. I learned the hard way how much that can cost you. So today, what we're going to cover, I've got 4 key points. 1 is why we wait too long to say no. 2, the hidden costs of saying yes to everything. 3, how to spot a no before you're in too deep. And 4, the exact scripts that you can use to say no without burning bridges. And as I was writing this out, I was laughing. It was like, I should have had this when I was dating, like back when I was single, because y'all, some of the yahoos, oh my gosh. So and the sad thing is I didn't learn, because I had to learn the hard way in business. So I hope this saves you a little bit of heartache, heartbreak, heartburn, and all the things. So let's get into this, okay? So the first reason that we wait too long and delay saying no is it's FOMO. It's the fear of missing out. Okay, it's the fear of missing out on income, the fear of missing out on exposure. And if you're like I was back in the day, and still sometimes today, I feel this way. I think, well, some money is better than no money, right? But if that sum is so little, it keeps you from bigger opportunities, it's costing you. Because the wrong opportunities eat up your time, they eat up your energy. Like there were times where I didn't have enough energy to sometimes even respond to the new inquiries that were coming in or to follow up with them accordingly. Then, of course, there's people pleasing. We don't want to disappoint someone who came to us for help. Okay, come on. For reals, like that is just taking ourselves way too seriously. Then there's the fear of being judged. Like they're going to go tell the industry that you're too expensive or too difficult, or they're going to tell your neighborhood HOA, or they're just going to, I don't know, take out an ad in the local newspaper. Like, why are we afraid of that? Why are we afraid of being judged as too expensive? I mean, honestly, now, isn't that a good thing? I'd rather be too expensive than too cheap. And it's not being difficult saying no. It's not being difficult at all to say no. Think about that when you were raising your children. If you didn't tell them no, I mean, come on, they might have stuck their hand in the garbage disposal. Is that being too difficult? No, that is saving your sanity and their hand. Okay. And if you take on a client that thinks you're too expensive and they keep trying to dicker you down, here's the alternative. The alternative is that they're going to be a nightmare to work with. And you're not going to make any money when you are working with them. But here's where we are right now, and it's even more difficult than it was a few years ago. And I have found myself, tinkering with this as well, and that is that there's a lack of leads. So like if your pipeline feels dry, okay, I say you start operating in desperation mode, but I mean we start operating in desperation mode. It's kind of human nature. And, and this takes me back to my dating. So like when I was lonely, right? I would date these yahoos who just were not like the highest standard. It was lonely. So you'll say yes to anything because the alternative feels like staring at an empty calendar. So if you are having a hard time with your boundaries with business, hopefully you had better qualifications or expectations when you were dating, better than I did. Okay, but I will tell you right now that a full calendar with the wrong projects is worse than an empty one. And we just recently went through this at ML Interiors Group. I mean, for the first time in a decade, we had somebody who snuck by all of the checks and balances that we have in place through our sales process. And working with this individual who, oh my gosh, just working with this individual was a nightmare. Juliana, my senior designer, I'm sure she was up at night just with heartburn over this nonsense client. I told Juliana she doesn't have to deal with her anymore, that I would step in. I had heartburn over this nightmare client, and I would, in a heartbeat, prefer not to be paid to put up with that sort of headache. Like, there are some designers, I know, there are some designers who are like, okay, well, if they're going to pay me that much money, they can treat me like whatever. And I don't advocate that. I do not advocate that they pay to abuse us. I don't, I honestly, for me, there's not enough money. There's not enough money to distract me and stress me out to the extent that a bad client can. Okay, so when you take on a bad fit project, maybe the budget is low or the scope is just kind of janky, it still takes up prime real estate on your calendar. So when a dream project calls, you literally just don't have the bandwidth for it. So sometimes you even have to say no to the good to make room for the great. But until you get to that point, you need to make sure you're saying no to the bad to make room for the good. Okay? Because it's called opportunity cost. And that can be huge. That can just be huge. Plus, lower budget jobs tend to run over in hours just as much as big ones. Okay, but you have less payoff. You're working just as hard for a fraction of the income. Lower budget projects or clients who are nitpicking you or wanting to understand everything, it takes up more time. Like finding the lowest budget solution, that's harder than finding the reasonable budget solution, which means it's more time and energy that you're spending, again, for a fraction of the income. So that's the financial aspect, but let's talk about the creative aspect because a misaligned project drains your energy. This energy, it's limited for us. Like we have limited energy as human beings. So the energy suck from a project that is not aligned creatively could be going into better marketing. Okay? Or maybe just more marketing, or maybe it's more intentional marketing. It could be going into better projects, or frankly, your personal life. Like how often are we neglecting our own, let's just say health, okay? Or maybe our family, maybe it's our health, maybe it is, the appointments that we need to be making. But instead, what you're doing is you're tweaking a design that you don't love for a client who doesn't really appreciate you or they don't see your value. I've had these. I've had projects that I will not have photographed because I don't want my name associated with that. But I took it just because I needed the money. But think about this as well, is that the projects you say yes to become the projects that people associate with you. So Brad with his green walls, y'all, I can still picture this green. Like he loved this mint chocolate chip green, basically, that we put up on his walls. Now, I did not take photos of that, but his friends and his family and potential referrals, they associated me with that green. Okay. So my portfolio, if I had photographed it, fills with work that attracts more of the same. So even though I didn't take photos of Brad, or not of Brad, but of Brad's project, I still had other projects that, in retrospect, could have been a no. I don't think that I'm the best resource for that. But it showed up on my website, and basically what it said is this is what I do, even if it's not what I wanted to be known for. Does that make sense? Like there's the reputation, there's the financial, there's the creative. These all have consequences for saying yes too often. So saying no early does a few important things. It creates space for projects that are a true fit. It positions you as selective. Okay. Like I'm not going to go out with every boy that asks me out. Okay. You're selective, which reads as confident and in demand. And then it protects your energy and your brand. Now, babe, I do want to say this before we get into much more, is that I still understand that sometimes we have to take a job just to keep the lights on. Okay. I am not saying that you need to, not pay rent, not pay your mortgage, not eat or whatever, because it's not some highfalutin job. I do not want to leave that taste in your mouth. But when you have a little bit of flexibility and something in your gut is saying, no, this is just not the right fit, that's what I'm talking about. Okay. So you don't have to overthink it, but there's like a little red flag checklist, shall we say, a red flag checklist. If the budget is significantly lower than reasonable, and what I mean by that is like at one point we had a minimum, okay? ML Interiors Group, we had a minimum design fee that we wouldn't basically leave the house for. We had minimum purchase price that we wouldn't consider taking a project otherwise. Have we lifted that a little bit right now because the market is in this trust recession? Absolutely. We have made some considerations. Okay. But if the budget is not reasonable, like they want you to shop at secondhand stores, but they want new product, then that's not feasible. Okay. Or the scope is outside your expertise or your interest. I've had a couple of calls recently for some commercial work. And while I did entertain it, I'm not chasing them. Okay, because it's a little bit outside of our expertise. And could we push it? Absolutely. Yes. Juliana would navigate it with grace. Juliana, for those of you who don't know, she's my senior designer at ML Interiors Group. She would navigate it nicely, but it's not necessarily as interesting. So I'm not embarrassing myself by not following up, but I'm not chasing the inquiry, if that makes sense. And then here's one that I came up with, that the client's communication style just makes you cringe. It could be during your qualifying or discovery call or your meet and greet, your virtual meet and greet. But if there's just something that is like nails on a chalkboard, trust your instinct, okay? Because you're about to spend the next, what, 4 to 6 months with this person or longer. So if their communication style makes you cringe, it's a thing.
You're an interior designer, not a marketer, but somehow you're stuck spending hours on SEO, social media, and email campaigns instead of doing what you love, designing beautiful spaces. Marketing shouldn't take over your business. That's why Sidemark was built by designers for designers. We offer done for you marketing services like SEO, paid ads, email, and even social media management so you don't have to lift a finger. Not quite ready to let someone run it all for you? We also have done with you software subscriptions that include all of the tools you need, along with live coaching, courses, and 24/7 live support to help you market smarter with a clear plan. Imagine getting back to doing more of why you started your business in the first place. Solve the marketing overwhelm and visit www.mysidemark.com today. That's www.mysidemark.com.
And then finally, a red flag checklist is if they push back on your process before you've even started. Like, dude, this is how I run my business. We go from the discovery call to the meet and greet to the initial visit to the scope of work preparation and presentation and the contract signature. Okay, that's my sales process. And then after that, we have strategic meetings that we schedule at the same time that when we sign the contract. We tell them, bring your calendar. This is what we're going to do. If they're not willing to follow my path, then that's a huge red flag, a huge red flag. And here's something that clients won't say out loud is that when you say no to a bad fit, they respect you more. It shows that you have standards and that you won't just take anything for the sake of a check. And what I've told prospective clients when I am talking to them and I know I'm not going to be a good fit is that I don't want to disappoint you or embarrass myself. Okay, you can take that word track all the way to the bank. And I have had more than one client or prospective client that I was turning down say, thank you. I really appreciate that. Because think about it for yourself. If you were to hire a contractor and they ghosted you because the project wasn't big enough or because they were uncomfortable doing it, I mean, how frustrating is that? And that's what we tend to do with our clients is like we don't show up as our best self. And myself, I avoid things. If I'm not comfortable, if or I don't like it, then I avoid things, which embarrasses myself. It embarrasses my company because I'm not giving the level of service that we promise we deliver. So when you are potentially seeing these red flags, or let's just call them pink flags, okay? So depending on what size they are, there's been a fun little trend going around on Instagram about the red flag. But ask yourself, here's what I ask. I ask myself, if I take this on, what am I saying no to? Okay, so if this is a yes, what am I saying no to? Because we can't fit everything on our calendar. And then if there's, and the answer could be is like, I don't know. I don't have any calls coming in. Like, I don't know what I'm saying no to. So I have to say yes to this. Okay. I understand that. My brain is going to argue the same thing. It's like, I have payroll. I need to pay my team. I have a lease. I need to pay my rent, electric, all of that sort of stuff. But here's the next question is, will this energize me or drain me? Okay, so if it's a drain or if it blocks a bigger yes, it's just a flat out no. No, period. End of story. No questions from there. And I have had to say no. So I had a very well-known podcaster and keynote speaker invite me to be a part of her an event that she had. This was this time last year. This was this time last year. Um, and it killed me to say no to her because I really wanted to be associated with this event. But my family and I were just moving into a new home. I was still trying to get things unpacked. It was as much as I wanted to do it, it stressed me out so much to think about what would happen is if when I had to pack and leave for a few days, be away from my family, like that was just it was too stressful. It will drain me, it will not energize me. Okay. And from a business standpoint, that hurt because I really wanted to be a part of it. It's the same thing with some projects. Other than the fact that you're like, "Oh, that's just going to be a hard stretch." So, again, if it's a drain, it's a no, period. If it blocks a bigger yes, it's a no, period. But let's go back to our people pleasing. Okay? You don't have to burn a bridge to say no. Here's some word tracks that you can use. Okay. Um, so again, it's I'd really love to help you, but I don't think I'm going to be the right fit. Maybe you explain to them why, and then it's I don't want to embarrass myself or disappoint you. Okay. You can also say thank you so much for considering me. This project isn't the right fit for my services, but I'm happy to recommend somebody who might be. Okay, now that is only if it is a viable project. It's just not viable for you. Okay, if their budget stinks, you educate them on why it's just not feasible to fill a living room, especially here in Texas, for $7,000. Okay, it seems like a lot of money, I know, but it's just not feasible. Another option, if it is a viable project, it's just not right for you, is just share with them, hey, I'm fully booked for projects like this right now. I'd be happy to connect you with another designer who could help. Okay, again, even if you don't have anything on your calendar, it's not a lie. I'm fully booked for projects like this right now. Okay, this is not the type of project I need. I don't need this commercial project. I'm fully booked for this commercial project, but I'm not fully booked for a full house decoration. You follow me? You follow me on that? And so if their budget or their goals or their timeline isn't quite right, you can just say based on your goals and budget, I'm not the best fit. But I want you to get the best outcome. Here's what I recommend. You can recommend, hey dude, like why don't you head on over to, roomandboard.com and put in your cart everything you know your living room is going to need and see how that totals up. Does that make sense? So you always want to close the loop with kindness. And if you can, share a resource. It could just be a helpful link. Here, I'm going to send you a link. Go fill up your cart with just medium, middle of the road selections and see how much that adds up to. And then maybe we can circle back around and see if I can be a good fit for you. But that way, the no feels like a professional courtesy instead of a rejection. I always joke that I have the skills of of an iron fist in a velvet glove. Okay, so you can say no and still leave people feeling really good about themselves. So, in fact, one of my bakery students, she came into the bakery. Um, it was cold, so it was sometime this past winter, and she was exhausted. She was saying yes to every single inquiry because she thought that she had to keep her calendar full. Okay. She ended up working on small budget draining projects for months. Months while turning down bigger inquiries because she just couldn't fit them in. So we were on an office hours call and I was talking to her and told her to go back to her. Let's go through this client qualification process. Okay, and it's simple. This is, I teach this in my Rolling in the Dough free workshop, but we go into more detail in the Interior Design Business Bakery, which is my paid my paid program. But it's like let's just ask about your timeline and your budget and weed out those bad fits. So with this, over the course of a couple months, she wrapped up her projects. And while she was wrapping those up, she turned down 3 projects that would have continued draining her time. Okay, but she landed 2 other high value clients who respected her process and paid her rates without flinching. Okay, so she's gone from feeling trapped in her business to feeling in control. So Part of it was she didn't feel ready, but with a little bit of accountability, it helped her feel done with playing small. So saying no is a growth strategy. It's not a luxury. Well, it is also a luxury because I get it. If you just have to keep the lights on, it is what it is. Okay. But start flexing your muscle, because the earlier you say no to a bad fit, the faster you make room for the right fit. Okay. And remember that every time you say yes to something, you're also saying no to something else. So you have to choose wisely. If you're going to put something new on your calendar, you're taking that room away from something else, or you might be removing something else. So maybe your clients are demanding that you get these things done and they're nagging you so much that you can't make it to your kid's basketball game or whatever that looks like. Okay. So if you're having to sacrifice other things, that's definitely a red flag. So inside the Interior Design Business Bakery, I give you the exact tools used, from client qualification templates, the exact discovery call flow, and we work so you can spot a bad fit before it takes over your calendar. And then in the lead lab, we work on keeping your pipeline so steady that you'll never feel desperate enough to say yes to the wrong thing. Because when you have the right leads coming in consistently, it's so much easier to confidently say no to the wrong ones. So that's another rule of running a design business that nobody else will say out loud. And what is that? That is simply saying no before you're ready is a growth strategy. So I'm Michelle Lynn, and I'll see you next time with more of the truths you actually need to hear. Hey, y'all. If you love the show and find it useful, I would really appreciate it if you would share with your friends and followers. And if you like what you're hearing, want to put a face with a name, and get even more business advice, then join me in my Facebook group, the Interior Designers Business Launchpad. Yeah, I know, it's Facebook. But just come on in for the training and then leave without scrolling your feed. It's fun, I promise you'll enjoy it. And finally, I hear it's good for business to get ratings on your podcasts, so please drop yours on whatever platform you use to listen to this. We're all about community over competition, so let's work on elevating our industry one designer at a time. See you next time.